Today's guest on the What Fuels You podcast is Demetri Themelis. Demetri is the co-founder and CEO at Knock, the leading performance management platform and CRM for multifamily property owners and managers. In his 8 years at Knock, Demetri has led the company to win 3 startup competitions and successfully raised $50 million in funding, all while developing meaningful friendships along the way. Prior to co-founding Knock, he worked in equity sales at UBS. He is an avid skier and outdoorsman and has competed in numerous competitions, including the US Freeskiing Open. Demetri is a proud member of the Seattle Greek American community and serves on the parish council of St. Demetrios Greek Othordox Church. On weekends, he adventures around town with his wife, Heather, and dog, Ouzo. Welcome, Demetri. So good to see you. Thanks for joining.
Thanks, Shauna. Good to be here.
I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire. You ready?
Yeah, let's go.
All right. I know that you're Greek, and I actually have my 20-year wedding anniversary this year, and I want to go to Greece. So I'm curious, if I get one visit, where am I going? Where is it like, or is there a hidden gem in Greece?
Yeah, okay, great question. So 99% of people visit Greece, and they do the Acropolis, and then they go to visit Mykonos and Santorini. And so there's like this very beaten path. My recommendation is like, go check the box, see the Parthenon, see Athens for a day. And then like, if you have to go to Santorini or you have to go to Mykonos, then go there, but spend like a day and then take the bulk of your trip and go to any one of the neighboring islands like Naxos or Milos, because you're going to have, the same sunsets, the same, just as good, if not better beaches. And you're going to totally get like a totally different experience culturally. So I always recommend people, like, if they must, go to Santorini for a night, check that box, but then just pop over to any of the other neighboring islands for like a more authentic Greek experience. And sorry, that's my dog.
What's your dog's name?
His name's Ouzo. So speaking of Greek beverages.
Oh, Ouzo. Yum. Okay. Where's your bucket list ski vacation? I know you're a big skier.
Probably like the French Alps or something like that. Like skiing in Europe would be pretty cool.
Yeah. And given that you work in equities, what stocks are you currently following or most excited about? Or are you even in the stock market?
I'm so not in the stock market. It's not even funny. And I remember when I used to do sales trading with UBS, like that was my job, right? Was to recommend stocks. And I remember talking with a lot of like high net worth, like entrepreneurs and people who'd built really amazing businesses and were UBS clients. And it was shocking to me, like how little they knew about stocks that they had, pretty significant holdings in. And I remember thinking to myself, like, I can't imagine ever being at a place where I have, hundreds of thousands of dollars invested in something. And I know, very little about it. And now sort of many years out of the world of finance and many years into entrepreneurship, you realize that it kind of takes tunnel vision in order to build a business. And so if I had any money to invest, I would certainly, trust a financial advisor to tell me what to do, but I would be just like the client that I used to shake my head at.
That's so funny. Okay. So are there leaders that you look up to, or like who would be the leader that you most admire?
Just like first one that comes to head is Elon. Just like what a beast. I like how he's a challenger. I like how he's sort of, marches to the beat of his own drum and pisses people off, but doesn't cross the line or anything. So
yeah. And if there was a book written about your life, what would it be called?
I don't know, figuring it out. And it'd probably be a comedy.
If you could have a superpower, which one would you choose?
Superpower, I would definitely go flying. You got to be flying.
Right? To just be like, okay, I'm just going to show up somewhere. Like the feeling of flying or the feeling of being able to arrive like on a beach in Greece out of the middle of nowhere?
It's like flying kind of like gets you everything else, right? Like get ready to go. I'd want to go fast. Like that would be cool. Yeah.
Well, you're a thrill seeker. You're the skier, like racer. Like, of course, you're wanting speed. Tell me, where did you learn how to ski? You grew up in Seattle or this area?
Yeah, skiing was a big part of my life. Grew up like just going up to local hills here, or we took a lot of trips to Sun river and bend growing up. So always liked skiing growing up, and I was really into like jumping. And so I got
Mm,
really into freestyle skiing, and it was really cool. Like when I was like in my teens, like that whole category, like freestyle skiing was really evolving super quickly. So I was really
mm,
fortunate to be, you know, participating in a sport that was kind of having its own cultural revolution at the same time. And like that was a big
right.
part of my life for a long time. And ultimately, you know, competed at the US Open and some other events like that. So yeah, it was a really fun part of my life. But now I'm,
That's
you know,
incredible.
not as
Were
good
you
as I
good at
once
school?
was.
Was school your thing? Were you a good
I was good
student?
at Yeah, I was good at school. I had like the Greek mom guilt. Like you had to you know, had to have good grades. I wouldn't want to have disappointed my mom or my dad or my aunts and
Yeah.
uncles, and so I felt like there was plenty of motivation to want to do good in school.
Yeah. It was a definitely like were you clear on kind of what your family values were? And education was one of them?
Yeah, it wasn't like I mean, I think yeah, I think education is definitely like a family value. Um, Both my parents were fortunate to go to school. I mean, they came from immigrant families where like that wasn't a thing, and so you know there was a lot of pride in that. Like my parents and aunts and uncles had gone to, you know, had gone to college, and
Mhm.
you know, growing up, it was always like I remember even in elementary school, it's like you're going to college. So that was there was always like that, like that's the finish line. Like you have to get at least there. Until then, you know,
Right.
job's not done.
Right. And how did you decide? How did you pick UW? Was that just a given, like you're going to stay in state, or who was kind of guiding you through that whole process? I'm asking through the
Yeah,
perspective of like I've got a junior in high school, and I'm like,
right.
what role do the parents play?
Yeah. It's an interesting question. So I always wanted to go to Colorado, University of Colorado. That was like the school in my head as like a kid. I just like it just made sense to me. Like it was in this town called
Boulder? Are you talking about
Boulder.
Boulder? Yeah.
Yeah, like it was in this town called Boulder in the mountains, and like their mascot was a buffalo, and you could go skiing all the time. Like that sounded like kind of like just spoke to me. And then I applied and got accepted, and then I was looking at the out of state tuition. It was like $30,000 a year then, versus I was fortunate enough to get accepted at the University of Washington, and I was paying my own way for school, so it was like $6,000, you know, annual tuition back in 2005 versus
Right.
30,000, and like the decision was sort of made for me. But
Right.
yeah, that's kind of how I ended up at University of Washington. It wasn't my first choice, but economically, like it
Yeah,
made a
it's
lot
such
more
a big
sense.
school. And what did you ended up studying? I know finance and international business. Was that just kind of a default, or did you have a sense of what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Ooh, I always wanted to be a doctor. My mom's a
Oh,
nurse, and I had a lot of like family in the medical profession, and so I was like, you know, watched ER, wanted to be a doctor, but took my first chem class and hated it and sucked at it. But I also took an econ class and kind of liked that and was pretty good at it. So just started doing more of what was working and taking those kind of business oriented classes and enjoying it, and that's kind of how I you know, ended up with a business degree.
yeah. Well, so I'm meeting you now, obviously, as an entrepreneur, founder, CEO of tech company, but you had a stint in New York working in finance. I mean, I went to UW. I don't remember people recruiting from New York from equity sales trading positions out of UW. Like, how did that come to be? How did you even know that that was a position to pursue?
Yeah. Well, when I was graduating, like I graduated right in June of 2008. Bear Stearns had already collapsed. Like Lehman Brothers was, you know, on the horizon. So the financial crisis was totally unfolding. And I was just very fortunate, like to to land a job in the first place. And the manager that had hired me, um, he was really you know, he was really committed to like having someone young in his office, like a younger analyst in the office. So just was very fortunate to begin with that I got a job. And actually the office that I worked at right when I graduated was in Sacramento,
Mm.
which was, it was funny, it's like close to a mall. I don't know if you're familiar with Sacramento Arden Fair Mall, but like we used to have to tell customers like take a right at Hooters and park next to Chuck E. Cheese. And like that's, you know, that was like where the office was, like in a suburban office park.
But how did you
Well,
get the job to begin with? Like, how did you apply online or like? 2008, what a crazy time to be looking for a job.
Yeah, I had been applying to lots of jobs and not landing any of them. And I had a friend who, someone from the Greek community here locally, Dina Karkonen. She's fantastic. She, I had coffee with her, and she told me about this program for graduates, like a graduate training program. And so I was super interested in it, and found out right away that the program was already full. Like they had already done all their hiring back in December. This was like the spring.
Mm,
And so as more and more jobs like kind of evaporated as the like financial world was kind of grinding to a halt and opportunities were being, doors were shutting left and right, I reached back out to her and I thought, well, maybe it's just not in the cards for me to land like a big boy job this year, but I want to be the first in line for next year. So if I have to invest the next 11 months, like getting to know the managers, doing like the networking stuff, like at least I can put myself at the front of the line for say a year from now. And so I kind of reached back out and said, hey, like, doors are closing. I'd like an opportunity to just, network over the next 12 months. Let's kick off that process. And it was just coincidence that as I mentioned, there was a manager who really was passionate about like wanting someone young in their office. Someone had dropped out of the program, and that manager was like adamant about refilling the position. So they did this kind of crazy lightning round of hiring for that one open spot, and I was able to get it. So it was kind of like a
oh,
weird
that's awesome.
snuck in the back door and then just held on for
But
dear
it's a
life for
story
a
of
couple of years.
it's a really a story of grit and perseverance, because a lot of people are just like, I guess I didn't get that job. Like, that's
Yeah.
amazing. I love those. I love just hearing kind of like the sliding doors of like, if that hadn't happened. And so that took you from Sacramento to New York.
Yes,
And
started in Sacramento,
yeah,
moved out to New York. We were doing like product rotation, so learning about different financial products. So I moved out there to work on alternative investments, and I know you've done work in that space in the financial world before. So was kind of working with like our hedge funds platforms and everything, and yeah, it was an awesome learning experience. And then I just was able, fortunate enough to be able to hold on to a job as there were a lot of change and restructuring, and yeah, ended up staying with UBS for 5 years and kind of saw, rode out the storm, so to speak. And that's kind of, I'd say, characterizes the time there as riding out the storm.
yeah. Well, I mean, talk about that. There is like, if you could make it there, you could make it anywhere. With great training, even if you didn't end up pursuing and sticking with finance. But what an incredible pivot! Like, how did you end up? Tell me the story of Knock. Did that come straight out of UBS?
Yeah, right after UBS. So Tom Petrie, the other co-founder, he and I had been classmates at UW. Were say, friendly acquaintances. We both got hired at UBS together. So when we on day one orientation, there was like a list of all the new analysts and what school they went to, and so our names were next to each other, out like sorted by alma mater, and we became really fast friends and roommates, and kind of went through a lot of training together. And so
Mm,
we just always talked about entrepreneurship. And like that was a time, right? Like Uber came out then, like the iPhone had just come out like our senior year. And there was like all of these, all of these change, like technology really kind of came into itself once, there was like an iPhone in everybody's pocket. And I remember, all kinds of cool services coming to market around that time, and Tom too. And so we were just always, I don't know, talking about different ideas, and that was sort of a constant theme of conversation for us. And so we knew we wanted to do something entrepreneurial, and then it just kind of worked out that we were both willing to give it a shot. In 2000, we quit our jobs in 2013, and I mean, there's more to the story, but yeah, it just kind of spawned out of a friendship and sort of a passion for trying something out.
yeah. And so, what was the original idea for Knock, and how did you come up with the name?
Well,
I
the
love the
initial,
name, by the
yeah,
way. I'm like, I love the name.
the initial idea was actually not knock. We were going to do something in benefits. Like we thought, man, as an employee of a big company, I've got all these big benefits. I've got my healthcare, my dental, vision, commuter, wellness, whatever. And we thought Tom had done some consulting work in benefits, and he's like, dude, people are terrible consumers of their benefits. We could make like a really cool like benefits education and utilization app, and like drive wellness and better healthcare outcomes and better data. And it was really cool. Like we spent.
And it's 100% true.
It's totally true. It's like a huge pain point, and we really liked it. But like all of the really cool stuff that we wanted to do with it, like we really would have needed amazing data from out of insurance companies, and like that was kind of clear that we weren't going to be able to get really great data out of insurance companies in order to help make consumers better, or customers like better consumers. And maybe that's by design, I don't know. But so but we had a lot of companies tell us like, well, we'll buy like these little, like, imagine like your healthcare card or your vision card or your commuter benefit, just like your plan information on like an app, right? And kind of a white labeled app with your plan information. And people were like, well, we'd buy that. And it was like, I don't know, it was a little disheartening to kind of know, like, you're like, wow, if we're going to commit, 10 years of our life or something to this, like building a business, like we'd like to do something that we're really passionate about, like the whole thing, not just that, like we have something that could be sold. And so around that time, like we were talking about all kinds of different ideas sort of over lunch conversations, and the idea that became Knock spawned from apartment hunting sucks. Like I'm helping somebody move, and it was, like the everybody who's rented kind of knows the customer journey. It's pretty universal. It's pretty objective. We thought like it's really missing a lot of the hallmarks of a great modern customer experience. And so just kind of picking at the pain point of like looking for a new apartment sucks was sort of how the conversation started. And then if you want, I'll tell you the name story, but because that's kind of
I
funny.
need to know. Yeah.
Okay.
How did
So
you come up with Knock?
the initial idea was zip digs, and for the project, so ZIPDIGS. And we thought, okay, it's phonetic, the domain's available, it's easy enough to spell, but it's like a pretty crappy name. And sure enough, like as soon as we incorporated changed our name to ZipDigs, like it got picked up in some news feed, like GeekWire wrote an article about it. And next thing we know, we got an email from a company in California called Zip Realty, threatening to sue us to change our name because, they owned everything Zip related in real estate technology. So they gave us like 6 months, and they paid us like $5,000 to change the name, which was funny because that's actually was our very first revenue as a company. It was like a trademark.
Yeah, you're like,
settlement.
Thanks for the money.
Yeah.
That
it's like,
we'll use it.
We're officially a revenue company. Congratulations.
Yeah, look at us, we're profitable.
Yeah, so we had like some time to change the name, and it's funny because we actually had like it's one of those things, like naming seems easy until you're actually like under the gun to change your name, and you've got a deadline looming, and it's, I don't know, is it a big deal? Not a big deal. It's a huge deal. You want something great. And I was dating a girl in Detroit who was from Detroit at the time. Terrible relationship. But and I'm happily married now, but anyways,
to someone else.
Yeah, to someone else. And it was a disaster of a relationship, but she was, telling me one night at work, she's like, I'm going to come up with the name, and was sending me just like a stream of texts of names, and they were all pretty bad. But then out of like in the middle of the stream, just Knock popped up, and I was like, holy crap, like that's amazing, and it's available.
It's such a good name. It really is.
That's how we got Knock. So bad relationship.
Well, you got something good out of the relationship.
Totally.
Yeah, something to walk away from. And so what was the original business model and business idea, and what is it now?
Yeah, so initially we just wanted to be open table for apartments. Like we thought, both from a customer's, like a renter's perspective, as well as like a property manager's perspective, like online scheduling was like the starting, the thing that we wanted to solve first. Like I can make, an Uber appointment online, or I can make a restaurant reservation online, or a fitness class or a doctor's appointment online. But to go on Zillow, or to go onto apartments.com, and to see, or Craigslist, you can see inventory, but like to actually convert your interest into an appointment, you were sort of taken from the digital environment and have to make phone calls or emails and go do that back and forth communication dance in order to just to get two people to the same place at the same time. And so online scheduling was super obviously missing to us, and no one was doing it at the time. So we started with scheduling. And so the initial value prop was like convert search traffic to foot traffic 24/7. And that's a pretty like compelling value prop. And like obviously businesses in just about every vertical have adopted online scheduling to turn like an interested customer into like a physical appointment. But what was interesting was that we found that that value prop made sense, but for this particular customer, like if you're looking for a new apartment, it's not just scheduling the appointment. Like a lot of times there's questions beforehand. What's your pet policy? What's the security deposit? How close are you to a school or a bus stop or whatever? And then of course, after the appointment, there's a lot of, similar questions, or can I come back with my, my partner or whatever? And so we were doing a really good job of helping connect people for the appointments, but we weren't like, they were still doing all that other communication
in like
you
a
know, out of,
cumbersome old school. Yeah.
yeah, in their like disorganized Outlook inboxes and on their, their phone systems and voicemails, et cetera. And so, our customers were telling us like, okay, you guys have kind of nailed this scheduling piece, but like our lives are still a total mess because we're having to jump back and forth between all these different communication protocols, phone calls, emails, texts, and keeping track of all this stuff is just, it's if anything, like you've made it worse because now we're logging into one more platform just to see our online appointments. And so, again, just trying to like figure it out and hold on. We kind of added more communication capabilities alongside the calendar until, at one point you could not only book appointments, but you could bi-directional phone calls, emails, texts, and chats and social media messages, like all piped into one sort of omni-channel communications dashboard. And that's finally when I think we found product market fit, where customers were like, okay, like I don't have to leave this anymore to do my job. Like
That's awesome.
all of my communications can stay here. And that's when I think, we finally established some product market fit as a business.
And how were you funding it at the time, aside from your $5,000 from Zip?
Yeah, from that probably that we might be like an NDA for that, but I think we're okay. We'll take the risk and keep that in the show. We had raised like our first $1.5 million of seed funding, which happened in over three different rounds, was all kind of individuals and angels and some customers too. And that lasted us for, the first, again, it was kind of over a couple of different rounds, but we didn't end up raising our first institutional round until much later, like until 2019. And that was when we started working with Madrona here in Seattle. So that was how we funded ourselves, just kind of seed financing.
Seed financing through like angels and various.
Yep.
And what was the business model as far as how you made money?
We were pre-revenue for a number of our early financings. But the way you make money, it's building technology for multifamily operators and people property management companies, is typically they think of revenue. Like if you think of an apartment building as a business, they're thinking of their revenue on a per unit per month basis. So like, what are my average rents in my property? And that's how they're conceptualizing revenues. So they want to normalize costs the same way. So if you're going to propose a service or a technology to, a real estate business, they want to know what's the cost per unit per month, right? Because that's how they're kind of normalizing pricing. And they're thinking about their budget. Like, I have X amount of dollars per unit per month to spend on marketing or operations, et cetera. And so, like, our business model is a subscription model where we charge, a price per month, per unit per month to our customers. And so like if you have a 150 unit property, it's less, the subscription costs less than if you have a 300 unit property, because there's more units paying, X amount of dollars per month.
So it's not about the results of what happens through the service. It's just that you have these.
Oh, sorry. I mean, it's definitely about the results, and like the way that the value that we're providing to our customers is tremendous. So our core product's a CRM. So, for most businesses, like your CRM system is sort of the crown jewel of your front office technology stack. And so we're like the full-on scheduling and communications and analytics platform for how our customers are engaging with renters throughout the entire customer life cycle. So housing all of that data and engagement between property manager and renter throughout that whole life cycle is sort of the value that we're providing to our customer. And the result of it all, it's like most businesses, like, why do you invest in a CRM? Well, because an organized and engaged sales team, performs better than a disorganized and disengaged sales team.
Right.
And so for a typical Knock customer, which might be 55 properties in 9 states and 10,000 apartment units for rent, we're essentially saying, hey, look, like, utilizing this best-in-class CRM, at the end of the year, you're going to have outperformed, any of your competitors or people, or yourself, if you weren't using like a great CRM, because you're just not going to be as engaged or organized. And what that looks like in the business is fewer renters, paying you, rent, because you're, slower to turn vacant units, et cetera.
Oh, interesting. That's awesome. And so tell me about the early days. I read that you attended some conferences, or like, how did people become aware of Knock? What was your strategy there?
Totally. I mean, once we established some product market fit, with, say, Seattle-based customers, and we realized we needed to expand, just talking to other companies in the space, they say, okay, like, you got to go to all the multifamily conferences. That's where everybody does business and gets to know each other. So we started attending and signing up and attending multifamily conferences. And like, one of the funny stories that you're probably referencing is we had spent like our $5,000 marketing budget and totally like blew all the budget just attending the conference for like a small tabletop exhibit. And there was like these huge pavilions and all like your kind of what you'd imagine like a big trade show pavilion. And we were kind of like the dorks in the corner with like a folding table. And it's like, man, on top of all these, big trade show pavilions, like these big brands, like say the Zillows and apartments.com in the world, like they're giving away Teslas and they're throwing private Kelly Clarkson concerts at night. And so we decided to spend a little money on like Pedialyte and aspirin and coffee and oranges and vitamins. And we set up a hangover booth.
Oh, that's so smart.
Of course,
at these conferences, everybody just goes and starts boozing, and of course,
so everyone's
that's
drinking,
so smart.
And we're like, hey, all these other companies are giving you a headache. Like, we're used to fixing headaches for property managers. We're going to do that literally. So
brilliant.
When they get you drunk, like come, and give you a hangover, you come to us and we'll take care of you in the morning. And that was like such a hit, and kind of became like our conference theme for a number of years.
I love it.
Customers laughed at, but they also, they're
going to remember you.
The protocols.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. And so you've got now you said about 200 employees. What's been your recruiting strategy, and how has, I guess, the pandemic impacted that strategy as far as drawing in people, since it's just gotten so nuts?
Yeah. I mean, look, I think recruiting strategy, we're using so many different tools to try to find, talent. So really, whether it's like professional, search, or, purchasing ads and trying to get awareness out there. We've been very fortunate to win like a number of best places to work awards. So we get a lot of awareness. So like, we see like we're filling our pipeline of potential candidates from all kinds of different places. But, I think our most successful hires have always been people that have been, references from our top performers. And we do a lot of incentives internally to try to encourage our employees to bring their friends on board. Like we love that. Someone gave me some advice one time where they were like, if your top performer introduces you to somebody and says, hey, like you should hire this person, like that's the person that you hire, blindfolded, hands tied behind your back. Like you just say yes, and you say yes right away, because that's going to be your next top performer.
Yes.
And we have so many examples of like amazing contributors at Knock, like saying, hey, like I've got a friend who's interested in working here. And those are always my favorite, favorite offer approvals, because you just know they're going to be great.
Yeah, totally. And so where are you as far as your growth? You've got 200 people. Where do you think you'll be in the coming year?
So we're probably closer to like 150 full-time, and then have a number of, contractors working for us in different roles. So all in probably close to 200. I don't know exactly where our headcount will end up this year. Probably add, maybe another 30% kind of growth year. We've got some pretty ambitious plans from like a product, development standpoint and growth standpoint. And obviously people are the most important asset kind of driving that. So definitely have some.
Well, it says a lot. The best places to work, we're super proud. We've been on that list for, I think, the last 7 years also.
Nice.
And
awesome.
I put a lot of intention around that. I read that your values of determination, excellence, trust, and community are kind of your core values. How have you come up with those? Are those come from the top down, or is your team kind of help kind of contribute there?
We've gone through our VP of People and Talent, Nicole Ossie. She's done an awesome job, like kind of working to codify a lot of the behaviors that have sort of been a part of our organization for a long time organically, and then kind of coming up with the right vocab to really name those behaviors and sort of turn that into more of a values-based conversation. So we've gone through a number of like workshops in order to really like identify our values, but they evolve over time. Like as your company changes, your goals change, the people at your company change, your products change, and not that there's like a bad value, but values continue to evolve and improve over time. So we're pretty intentional about it though.
Yeah. And how's it been for you as a leader? It can be a little bit lonely knowing, like, especially, are you guys remote 100%, or are you hybrid, or what's your plan during this, during the pandemic?
We have an office that's open, and, we have, a number of folks that are kind of coming in on a regular basis, but most people are taking advantage of, the convenience of being remote. Last week, we actually had like our annual all hands kickoff, which was the largest internal event we have ever had. We had, well over 100 people attend, and it was amazing. Like personally, I really miss all the human interaction that's not via Zoom.
Totally.
And so I'm a big proponent of trying to, like, if I had my way, if I could just wave a magic wand and have everybody come into the office every single day, like I would totally make that rule, and I would be the first guy there and the last one to leave because I love it. But I'd have no employees because no one.
Everybody has, things have changed for sure about what matters. And so how have you shown up as a leader, I guess, leading in a hybrid model? How have you ensured connectedness and engagement?
Well, like, it's not that, like, I don't want to say that we've got that all figured out for sure. But I think there's a couple of things. One, just like a steady reminder to, everyone on the team of like over communicate to avoid miscommunicate. As you can tell, I talk too much, but really try to encourage everyone on my team to over communicate, because it's easy to forget, how little about the company, someone new coming in and like their overall exposure is. So just got to make sure you're constantly reminding people like over communicate. So that's a good one. And then like this year, we've really tried to create like a very clear operating rhythm of like when we're getting together and why. So like my leadership team, like they get together in Seattle once a month in person. Now, the other 29 days of the month, they're free to work, from wherever they want, do their job. And, on a quarterly basis, we're going to have all our directors, come in, and then semi-annually, like leadership directors and managers, and then annually have everybody together, and then create budget for teams to do stuff just intra-team in person. I think you just got to get way better about your meetings. So like, again, we're like, leadership team comes to Seattle once a month, directors once a quarter, managers every 6 months, everyone together every year. So these are like precious moments when we're together, and you got to make sure that you're like taking full advantage of those. I mean, they're expensive, but those meetings become like, essentially they become your company, right? Like that, like when people come together, because the rest of it's sort of through a Zoom, through their screen. So we're trying our best to just make sure that we're really making sure that we're doing a good job and there's great quality to the time that we get together as a team, because that kind of becomes the drip.
How are you personally spending your time when you're not at work, just to kind of reboot, relax, recharge?
Spend a lot of time. I just got married, so my wife, she keeps me very busy with lots of things. And don't have any kids yet or anything, but have an awesome puppy. I think Ouzo, I talked about him. So doing a lot of stuff with him, little adventures. Like to get in the car and just enjoy the access like we've got here in the Northwest, and a lot of skiing and a lot of hiking and backpacking and fishing and hunting and all that kind of good stuff.
You're the quintessential like Seattle outdoorsy guy. I love it. And so my question is like, what's your ultimate fuel? What fuels you? What gets you out of bed in the morning?
Just challenge, honestly. Like there's being an entrepreneur, there's just so many, like every day there's like a new rogue wave and something you don't expect. And but it's when you work through those challenges and you come out the other side of whatever that challenge is, or that obstacle, you find that you're stronger, that you're more capable, that you're, ready to take on the next thing.
Yeah.
And I think like having made that connection in life, and certainly, as an entrepreneur, that like hardships are opportunities, and that's like, ultimately like the next thing for you to grow, the next thing for you to learn from, like the next thing for you to take meaning from. Like you can, hopefully train yourself not to be like upset or angry or depressed at any time that there's like a new obstacle in front of you, but you can look at it as like, ooh, like life has given me another opportunity to grow into grown. So I really, for me, like, I think if you didn't take some humor and find a way to take meaning in some of the challenges and struggle, like the weight of, life would just be way too hard for everybody, not just, entrepreneurs. And so that's my fuel, is just kind of seeing meaning in struggle.